We have a couple more weeks to go to the end of the series about the midot, about character and human nature. Tonight's topic is about azut and kavod azulat. In English it means audacity or lack of respect, as we will see there are various meanings to azut, and kavod azulat, respect for another human being. There are various definitions of what azut is. So I want to give you a little bit of an idea. So I put together various depictions of this characteristic called azut or azut panim. Audacious is actually the one that is positive. This particular midah, being ferocious, audacious, can be good. The negative aspect of this characteristic is described as follows: shameless, disrespectful, offensive, rude, contempt, brazen, insolence. In easier English, a lack of politeness, failure to show regard for others, and all kinds of behaviors where people show disrespect. This is unfortunately a characteristic that is quite prevalent. We see it from time to time. People have it. And some individuals have it from birth almost. From the time that they were children, it is already identifiable in them. And it is called in Israel Hutzpah. In other words, if we were to find the best word to describe it, instead of getting into all the semantics, the best Hebrew word for it is Hutzpah. It's such a good word that even in English it has been adapted, for no better word, to describe a child or an adult who behaves in this way. It could also happen, however, to individuals who have all of a sudden become wealthy. They were not wealthy in the past, they've become wealthy. And a wealthy man, Mishle, Solomon tells us, has that in his nature. Not every wealthy man, but some do. As he says, Ashir Ya'ane Azut. A wealthy man has the gall, we call it in English, to talk back, to be disrespectful. It's because of his money, because of his arrogance, that he feels that he should look down at others, that he is able to talk in a disrespectful way. So what we see is that as a result of circumstances, or as a result of one's nature, from when he's a young child, some people have that in them, and it's a terrible weakness, as we will soon see what it does to an individual, how harmful, how much damage it can do to him and to those who are around him. So let's begin by describing what the rabbis tell us about this midah, about azut panim. Anyone who has azut panim, who's a disrespectful person in his nature, not that he's once in a while disrespectful, I'm talking about azut panim, it is seen on him, has no shame. He's not embarrassed. And as you know, our tradition is that the Jewish nation, one of the midot, one of the beautiful characteristics that a Jew is supposed to have is bashfulness. That he's shy, that he's bashful, that he's not aggressive, that he's not disrespectful. It's a very good sign, a positive sign, indicating that this is of Jewish blood. And the opposite, one who lacks completely busha, one who has no respect for others, one who does not have shame, you can suspect that maybe he's not Jewish. So much so. So this is a very important midah, the midah of busha. And this man who was an az panim doesn't have that. Not only does he not have shame, not only does he embarrass others too, but he's not easily to forgive. He's not easily to forgive, and the worst part of this is that he will continue, because of this very, very negative trait, he will continue in his negativity, in his behavior almost for the rest of his life, unless he gets this under control. This is a midah, this is one of the midot, one of the characteristics that makes it very difficult for one to do teshuvah, for one to repent from his ways. It's very difficult to control. It doesn't mean it's impossible, and if he does not get a handle of this, he will just continue the rest of his life to be disrespectful of others, not to be forgiving, and not correct any of his weaknesses. Rabbis also tell us that somebody who has azut panim is always going to be getting involved in fights, mahloket, and sin'ah, hatred for people. Basically, he will get himself into a lot of trouble with people because of his chutzpah, because of his azut panim. It's not one of those midot that you can easily hide. It's actually the opposite. It's one of those midot that everybody can see. You can see it on his face. You can see it in his behavior. And this is a behavior that is not only in the street. Anybody who has azut panim, he will have it in the home too. It's not like he's in home, he's a doll, and outside he's a monster. No, anybody who is az panim is going to display this characteristic everywhere. And I'm sure every one of you here has met somebody like that. And there are various degrees of azut panim. Not everybody is a monster, but a lot of people have, unfortunately, some degree of this midah, where they can be very disrespectful of others, but disrespectful in a very offensive way. There is a disrespect in a very quiet way. Here we're talking about a disrespect in a very open, offensive, rude way that is seen in the speech, it is seen in the conduct, in everything that the person does. An ugly midah. This individual, imagine he meets up with somebody who's more learned than him, more knowledgeable, saintlier, greater. He won't have respect for him. If this is the true midah of this individual, he couldn't care less. He will not be respectful of anyone. Many of us have some respect for the elderly, even though they're not intelligent people. But he's an older person, he's a senior citizen, we get up, we treat him with respect. It's only common sense. It's not, even not being taught to do so, it is almost natural for many of us. We don't think twice about it. He needs our help, he deserves it, he's gone through life. It's just common sense. But an az panim does not use common sense. He therefore does not have any kavod, not even for those who are older than him, and not even for those who are more intelligent than him. I once saw a very sad sight in front of me. It didn't involve an az panim, but something close. A young man, he wasn't so young, he must have been in his 50s, was accompanying his mother to the doctor. And the mother, of course, of this man who's in his 50s must be in her late 70s. An older lady. Anything she asked of him, he was so impatient. It irritated him. He yelled back. He couldn't take it. It was impossible. And I was saying to myself, wait a minute, this is the mother that took care of you, that raised you, that was patient with you, that loved you so much. Why don't you return those years for her? Now, when she needs you, you needed her, and now it's payback time, when the older parents sometimes need their children. But he wasn't thinking like that. He was just being himself. When a person does not work on his midot, on his character, he remains like that for the rest of his life. And even though this is his mother. Yeah?
Someone who has more of an element of fire tend to be in this category, Rabbi? Would you suggest that, or not necessarily? Someone who's more fiery, as opposed to a water person who's more calm and would not have that characteristic that you described?
Well, anyone who has a large dose of the fire element in him, when we spoke about the elements of fire, earth, water, and air, of course, that is his challenge, because he's closer to anger, he's closer to being aggressive and being disrespectful of others. Of course, that's where it comes from. Yeah, sure, that's correct. Yeah. So an individual who has this midah will not really have too much respect for anyone, no matter how smart they are, how special they are, how much older they are than them. It wouldn't make that much of a difference. What's interesting to find is in Yirmiyahu and in Yechezkel too, these prophets who lived during the first temple era towards the end, they are describing a generation who was very callous and very indifferent. And this is the words that he uses. Their face has become tougher than rock, and therefore they have refused to change their ways. Their face has become tougher than rock is a description of azut panim. person whose heart is made out of stone. It's a description of somebody who's not willing to listen, to bend, to be flexible. A face who's made out of rock is also a description of an individual who's indifferent, who doesn't care, who's not sensitive, who has chutzpah, who's disrespectful. The Navi, the prophets, giving you a direct message from Shamayim, is telling you that this is what you should fix, but their face has become like rock, made out of stone. In other words, no sensitivity whatsoever. This individual is therefore very distant from doing teshuvah. He will have a difficult time, and he's very similar in some ways to the letz. We spoke about the very beginning in the series about the makar. Haletz, the one that makes fun of others, the one that cools people off, people who are motivated, people who are excited to do a mitzvah, comes along the letz and makes fun. What do you need this for? This is primitive. What are you doing now? This is ridiculous. This is silly. That's the letz. He doesn't have a real argument. He's not using common sense. He's not trying to dispute what you're doing. He's just making fun of it. I mean, why are you making fun of it? Do you know something better that the other person does not know? Do you really have something, an alternative? Do you have some proof that what he's doing or she's doing is wrong? Then why are you making fun of it? But that's the nature of the makar, is to just pour cold water on people who are excited, people who are motivated to do the right thing. And that is why he's a big sinner. He's misleading them, he's cooling them off. And because of that characteristics, as we've explained in the past, how is he ever going to change his ways? How is he ever going to do teshuvah when he cools other people off? How is he ever going to get inside of himself? So an aspanim, an individual who is very aggressive, very offensive, very brazen, and has contempt for the law, for the Torah, how is he ever going to do teshuvah? It's so difficult for him. It's possible. It's always possible. We never give up hope on anyone, but it's so much more difficult for somebody like this. And that is why it is no wonder that when you learn what the rabbis say about an aspanim, you will come across a very difficult statement. Aspanim legehenom. Anybody who has aspanim, the chances are that he's going to end up in Gehenom. So why? Did he kill anybody? What did he do? Because as we said before, aspanim, because of this midah of disrespect, and we're going to talk about the various disrespect soon, he most likely will commit many transgressions. He will most likely get himself into a lot of trouble with the law, with people. He may insult, he may hurt people. Who knows what he will do because of his azut panim. It's such a terrible, difficult midah to correct, of course. If he doesn't do anything about it, he may end up in Gehenom. In other words, it's a sure way of getting into Gehenom, unless he stops himself. Part of the reason why this individual does not attempt to change his ways is because the rabbis tell us the averot, the sins, are taken very lightly by him. He's not a serious person. Somebody who's a serious, responsible individual, then he catches himself and says, well, what did I just do? What did I just do? This is so wrong, this is bad, this is going to get me into trouble. A person who's not serious, is not responsible, he's not going to think. It's like he's drunk. Like an angry person who loses control over himself. When you're angry, you lose control. So an aspanim does not think about his actions. And not only does not he think, he takes the sins, the transgressions, in a very light way. And because he takes it very lightly, why should he think about correcting them? He doesn't take it seriously. And one of the terrible sins that this midah will bring him to is to embarrass people, to embarrass the poor people. And embarrassing is not something so easy, so light. Embarrassing somebody, especially in public, it's one of those offenses, one of those transgressions that the rabbis tell us, if you don't do proper teshuvah, you don't have a chelek l'olam haba, you won't have a share to the world to come. So to embarrass others, we are careful. Most people are careful. We don't do it in public. If it ever happens, it's something so unusual. He must have gotten us very upset. Why? But this one, who's an aspanim, the way he talks, the way he behaves, it could easily lead to that he puts people to shame, that he embarrasses people. So let's try to figure out, before we continue to see how to deal with this midah, is where does this come from? We said money could lead to it. Okay, but what about the one who's not wealthy? Let's say, chas v'shalom, there's a child who's like that. He's rebellious, he's offensive, disrespectful of his parents, of his teachers, of other children. Where does this come from? Remember, midot have a parent midah. Many of them have a parent midah. That means there is a root, a deeper problem here. One who's an aspanim, one who's an arrogant person, the rabbis tell us, the root of it in him is gava and kas. He has arrogance and he has anger. In other words, even though he may not show his arrogance at all times, there's a certain amount of arrogance there. Otherwise, how does he allow himself to make fun of others, to be disrespectful? He thinks highly of himself. Various degrees of arrogance, but this is the root. The roots, the parent midot of azut panim, of disrespect for someone else, is because he is arrogant. There's a certain aloofness in him. He thinks highly of himself, or self-centered, whatever you want to call it. That plus anger. And as a result of that, these are two very difficult, heavy midot. He has a hard time managing himself. Managing, in other words, controlling himself. What's interesting is that the Gemara tells us that one of the reasons why Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation, received the Torah is because we are azin sheba'umot. We are the audacious, we are the aggressive ones amongst the nations. In other words, there's a certain aggressiveness, or better, I would rather use the word, certain rebelliousness, a certain brazenness that we have, Am Yisrael, that Hashem says, you need Torah. If you have the Torah, that will refine your character, that will polish you, that will allow you to control yourself. So we have the Torah not only because we were chosen for this mission, not only because Hashem felt we can accomplish it, because we're also stubborn, for a variety of reasons. But another reason, an additional reason why we were given the Torah, is that Torah is a way where one can polish his character. Without the Torah, why should one be motivated to change his ways? The Torah reminds him, this is for your own benefit. I'd like to just spend a few minutes on a very, very fascinating topic that has to do with this midah. You're going to like this one. This particular midah of azut panim will explode, will increase 100-fold in the days of Mashiach. That's what the rabbis tell us. Rabbis tell us in the generation of Mashiach, you're going to see an increase, a tremendous increase of Hutzpah. And to describe to us how terrible this Hutzpah is and how much of it will be, they even tell us something as sad as a son will rebel against his dad. When you were growing up as children, there was a lot of kavod for one's father. You kissed his hands, right? Remember? In your generation, as children? Right? 50 years ago? Right? Also, I think everybody tells me the same thing. The past generation, the kavod for a father, even if he was wrong, everybody was quiet, you know. My mother tells me that when her father just looked at everybody, they were scared. He just looked. Now the children tell their fathers what to do. Right? Now they tell us what to do. Chutzpah. The chutzpah of the generation of Mashiach is that a son rebels against his father, against his parent. Not every son, not every child will be like that. It's a description of the generation, of course. That there will be a lot of chutzpah, a lot of disrespect. Where are they picking this up? Is it in the air? The answer is yes, it's in the air. Why is it in the air? Where is it in the air? The last generation before Mashiach comes, there will be a tremendous emphasis, a tremendous, emphasis is one word. Another word for it, there will be a tremendous pull of Amalek. Amalek, the power of Amalek will be very, very much increased, felt, pulled, whatever word you prefer. It will be felt, it will be seen. And this power of Amalek amongst the Jews is called the Erev Rav. Amongst the Jews, there is a group called the Erev Rav, which means the multitudes that joined us, that converted to Judaism years ago. They do not have pure Jewish souls, and there are various categories of Erev Rav. And this Erev Rav have midot, have characteristics that they share in common with Amalek. Erev Rav shares certain characteristics in common with Amalek. And who's Amalek? The worst of the worst. Against God, against everything. He's the evil, the epitome of evil. So you have amongst the Jews too, because of the Erev Rav being amongst us, this characteristic of Amalek, of being rebellious, of being disrespectful, of being heretic. A heretic, he doesn't believe in anything, doesn't want to believe in God. And this will bring about, of course, the lack of attachment to religion as a result of the scientific revolution. You have the science turning to be a god in people's mind. They worship science. Right? Even the Goyim used to be more religious than they are today. Because of science has replaced religion in many ways, in many societies. So there's a less and less respect for Torah values, less respect for religion. And this midah that's in the Erev Rav is going to be a big problem for the Jewish nation, because this Erev Rav is not just going to be around us, they're going to be many of the leaders of the Jewish nation. In the government positions, in all kinds of positions. And they're going to control. And they're going to, of course, do things in their way, in a disrespectful way, in an oppressive way sometimes, in an offensive way against the Torah and against the scholars and the rabbis. Is it no wonder that we see and hear and read what goes on today in Israel? This is all Erev Rav. It is all out there. It's all out there in the world, and including the Jews. And as a result of this midah, what happens? It affects one's family too. The relation between parents and children is weakened. But it's not only weakened because of this characteristic. It's weakened, of course, because of the pressures of life, because of the way society functions today. Everything is fast-paced. There's a lot of other factors too. But today you're seeing things slip away. You have no control anymore as much as in the past. And therefore, the rabbis tell us that this generation will be described as the generation of the face of a dog. Pnei hador ki pnei hakelev. The face of the generation will be like the face of the dog, because the dog barks at everyone, right? The dog has Hutzpah. The dog it has this characteristic of azut. And the generation will have that. Another interpretation of Pnei Hador, the face of generation, who's the face? The leaders. Many of the leaders of generations will behave like dogs. In other words, will have chutzpah, will have no respect for authority, for Torah, and for the rabbis. Now, what happens in one's home, of course, which is more closer to us, is that as a result of the distance between a father and a son that's created from chutzpah, there will be also distance from religion. What is religion? Religion is the father's tradition. The father or the grandfather used to follow a certain tradition, depending, of course, where he grew up. And if the son has no respect for his father, he will not have respect for his father's tradition, possibly. And the other way around, if he has no respect for the tradition, he will have no respect for his father who follows the tradition. In other words, the two of them are very connected. If a child does not respect the father's tradition, it means he does not respect his father. If he cared about his father, he would care about his father's tradition. But unfortunately, what's happening is that a lot of people have moved away, little by little, and eventually their kids moved even further, assimilated and intermarried and completely severed all connection with the Jewish people. It's happening all the time as we speak right now, unfortunately, intermarriages. One last week in New York State, and I don't even want to mention the name because you all know anyway, right? New York State, yeah, big wedding, right? Of a Jew to a non-Jew, yeah. What's this? No respect, no kavod. It says clearly in the Torah you can't do it. But for those of you who listen to the lecture on intermarriage, this is tantamount to somebody just throwing down the Sefer Torah on the floor, stepping on it and spitting on it. Would a Jew do that? Of course not. But that's exactly what he does when he marries a non-Jew. It's the same thing. The exact same thing. It's a chutzpah. It's a lack of respect. We held this so dearly, we were giving a life for this. We gave our life for Torah. All of a sudden you're throwing it away? How do you justify it? They don't really justify it. It's just that they're so insensitive to this. They don't realize the severity of this because of the chutzpah. They have no shame. And this is of course the midah of Amalek. This is the midah that will stand out in the generation of Mashiach, that there will be so much chutzpah, and because of that there will be a lot of heresy. As a result of that, people will move away from their faith, from emunah. Because you know what emunah is? If a person has true emunah, he's humbled. He's not chatzuf. He's more careful, more sensitive. He feels terrible if he did something wrong. That's real emunah. Real emunah is one who is a tamim. He's so sincere. He's so careful with everything he does, as much as possible. He takes life seriously. He knows we're not here for a picnic. He knows that we're accountable for our actions. We better be responsible. We better behave ourselves. We made a mistake. We say, I'm sorry. We do teshuvah. We correct. That's emunah. A person who has real emunah takes life seriously. And here you have the exact opposite. Enjoy life. Have fun. Right? That's all. That's what they're basically living according to those kinds of philosophies. What does Hashem do with these kind of people? So David Amalek tells us in Tehillim, Im navar titbarar im ikesh titpatal. Even though that pasuk is describing Hashem's relation with people, that with those who are navar, with those who are pure, Hashem will be pure with them, and will deal with them in a very special way. And with those who are ikesh, crooked, twisted, stubborn, He will go in a twisted way with them. In other words, Hashem will deal with every individual according to the way he's behaving. So this pasuk is also used to tell us how to deal with such people. If you have an individual who is chatzuf, who is brazen, who's shameless, in other words, who's rude, one way, this is just one way that you may have to use is to be very tough on him. Not to give in to him. He has to sometimes learn the hard way. There is a softer approach too. But at times, this is what you need to do. Now, when do we use the hard approach? Not in a husband-wife situation. Not really. Not with a father-child situation. We use it with Rashaim. And you're going to see why in a moment. Rashaim means wicked people. Wicked, that we have determined that this is not just a characteristic, a flaw in his nature, that his whole life is against Torah, against Judaism. He's out to get you. That's Rashaim. With them, you fight. You have no choice. In other words, with people like that, you can't give in. You have to fight it completely. Now, how do you fight it? In the Kabbalah, there's a description of azut panim, Hutzpah, a Kabbalistic term used to describe the impure forces, how they go after us sometimes. Some of them have Hutzpah. Some of them are very low, as we would say in English. They would do terrible things to make you come down. we need to fight them too. How do we fight them? With azut panim of the positive type. Remember we started off saying that there's a positive and a negative of this midah? Now I'm switching over a little bit to the positive type of this midah called audacity. Because audacious or audacity is more positive. The other definitions that we gave were negative. What kind of audacity? What's a good audacity? So the rabbis tell us, Have'az kanamir, be audacious like a leopard. You know, a leopard and a tiger? Even if they're not hungry, they're dangerous. If you go next to a lion who's full, you can be a foot away from him, he'll fall asleep, he may not even look at you, unless you bother him, of course. A tiger, don't get close to a tiger, even if he's not hungry, even if he knows who you are. They're very, very audacious. They're very, very aggressive. And therefore dangerous animals. Yeah, that's always it with a tiger and a leopard pretty much too. So rabbis tell us, Have'az kanamer, ratz katzvi, kal kaneh shelasot retzon avicha shebashamayim. Pirkei Avot, be as swift as a deer, as fast as a deer, as swift as an eagle, and as courageous as a lion, gibor ke'ari, and as kanamer, ferocious or audacious, as a leopard. For what purpose? Not to behave like that, but to do the will of Hashem. In other words, when it comes to do the will of Hashem, you may need to borrow from these animals their characteristics, as long as you use it to do His will. If you're going to do His will, then it's fine. Now, when do you want to use this characteristic of audacious or ferocious as a leopard? Let's say somebody just did teshuvah. You know what happens to many people who do teshuvah? People make fun of them. It could be the spouse, it could be the neighbor, it could be the father, it could be a friend, it could be a partner. What happened to you that you're putting a kippah all of a sudden? Did somebody die in the family? You know, they start making fun. Mishumet? All kinds of things. And I don't want to go into all the jokes they make of religious people. Unfortunately, this happens too much. And do you know that some of these people cannot take the pressure? They're making fun of them. And they fall. And they just cannot progress. They cannot advance. Some of them are able to deal with it. They live through it. And eventually people forget. They stop bothering you after a couple weeks. How do you deal with them? You have to be very, very strong. You don't have to answer back. You don't have to be disrespectful to them. But you have to be very strong. Have'az kanamer, when? When people are making fun of you. If people are making fun of you and you know you're doing the right thing, don't listen to them. Ignore them. Be strong. Push them off. Just don't deal with them. You have to be very, very strong. So when it comes to do Retzon Avicha Shebashamayim, the will of Hashem, we need this midah. This is the positive type of audacity. This is the positive type of being strong, being shameless in a way, shameless. In other words, don't be afraid, don't be ashamed of what they say. Just go and do what is right. Therefore, the same idea exists also with the Sutra Hara. The Sutra Hara is a concept used in the Kabbalah to describe the other side, the impure forces. The impure forces out there, the Kabbalah explains, are after us. And as Mashiach gets closer, they're going to increase their power. There's going to be an increase in the power of the Sutra Hara to bring people down in every way possible. You don't think it happens through the internet? The internet is one of the tools of the Sutra Hara, but there's so many good things in the yes, but there's so much filth in the internet as well. And if you're not careful and you're not strong, right? And you're not determined, you don't know what you're doing, you may get caught. You may get caught in the arms of the Sutra Hara. So you need to be az panim, you need to be audacious and strong against the Sutra Hara, against all these forces of evil that are out there. Not allow your eyes to see what is going on. It's so easy in the street when you're walking down the street. I'm talking about right now to the men. It's very easy to see things that are forbidden to see, things that are dangerous for our neshama. Very easy to see. I mean, it's all over the place. It's on the street, it's on the billboards, it's everywhere. You have to, I think we should start wearing, I think sunglasses. Maybe that's the only thing, Otherwise you have to, because you have to put your head down, and you can't put your head down when you're driving. What do you do? No, it's a real difficult situation. Very difficult situation. I know people who wear glasses, that when they go out in the street, they take off their glasses. Unless they need them to read, to drive, they take them off. Because with them, they're going to see things they don't want to see. They're extra careful. It's everywhere. This is azut panim. This is a form of impudence, chutzpah, brazenness, whichever word you like, against that which is holy, of course. Coming from where? From the Sutra Hara, coming from Amalek, coming from all these impure forces. And to attack who? Those who are holy, those who are close to Torah especially, those who are not in the Torah. We're not as concerned. We're concerned more about our children. We want to be protective of them. We want to care about our homes. Imagine a husband and a wife, they have a good relationship. Baruch Hashem. So, they get along. And all of a sudden, he's watching a movie with his wife. He's not supposed to, but he's watching it anyway because he found out it's a kosher movie. If there is something like that. And in the movie, he sees a movie star. And she looks young and attractive. A size 2. Is that a good size for women, a size 2? Yeah. Or is it too skinny? I don't know. Is it too skinny? Okay, size 3. Right? Then he starts looking at his wife who's sitting next to him, and she's a size 15. Is that big? All right, 14. I'm stuck with this right now. He starts comparing. He starts comparing. You think he's not doing it out loud. He's not looking at her. But subconsciously he's comparing. This is what I'm stuck with. Maybe I should go look for something else and replace her. What is this, a car? You replace your car?
Trade it in.
You trade it in? Huh? But some people look at it that way. Where did they learn this from? From the Goyim. The non-Jewish mind is filthy. The non-Jewish mind has no religion today, has no rules and limits. If the governor of this state is allowing gay marriages, he says, let's go ahead and make it okay. It's fine. Why are you making such troubles? The governor, you know what a governor is? A governor is a leader of the state. Right? Imagine the president, the senate, but that's what the senators are. That's what the leaders of this country are. Not so 200 years ago. Read what John Adams, for example, President number 2 of the United States, wrote about Israel, about the Jews. Read what Thomas Jefferson wrote. I'm not saying they were tzaddikim. But they had morals. They had different values. They looked at life differently. They were more religious. Yeah, for sure. They made mistakes. They're humans. But what you see today, all of this is Amalek, Sutra Hara, azut panim. And this is an azut panim of the worst kind because it's coming from impure forces. So the only way to do battle with that azut panim is with a positive azut panim of being extra careful with Torah, extra careful with purity, extra careful with what we do, because otherwise people easily become exposed to this and they fall. They become like that. They assimilate. People are influenced by the environment. There's nothing you can do. Listen to a Jew who was raised in this country, speak Hebrew, read from a prayer book. Ask him to say the word Achashverosh. You know what he's going to say to you? Achashverosh. He cannot pronounce it the way it's pronounced in Israel, the way it used to be pronounced. Let's not talk about how it was originally pronounced, which a lot of people don't know. But the Resh does not exist in English, the thrilled one. If you speak Farsi, you don't have a problem. If you speak Arabic, you have no problem. If you speak Spanish, you don't have a problem. If you speak English, you have a problem. If you've assimilated to the American society, they can't pronounce the Resh. No Resh. Right? It's not possible. Just like the Het and the Ain cannot be pronounced by most countries, not even by Persian people. Het and Ein, it doesn't exist in the alphabet. The letters exist, but not the pronunciation. It's lost. Unless you study it and you practice it, it's lost. It's lost. So you might say, okay, it's just pronunciation, but that's just a small example. What about habits? Habits that they pick up from the streets, slang, and hashkafot, the view, how they see the world. It's all picked up. It's all picked up and learned from the TV or from the radio, from the newspapers. How are you going to control yourself? Oh, I'm not going to let that affect me. It just happens. People pick it up. And they become like them. Of course, they still wear a kippah. Of course, they'll eat kosher and keep Shabbat. But they become American Jews. Now, that's not so bad if they were to be very strong in their value system, in their marriage, in their home. Okay, so they're American Jews, so they like pizza. Well, even though pizza is actually Italian. They like, hamburgers and hot dogs. Okay, so they like to go to baseball or play baseball. That's not so bad. But when a Jew starts behaving like a goy, and he sees marriage as something which is just dispose of it as soon as you can if it doesn't please you, right? And go and do things that they're going to do, then you know that this man has assimilated. He may not have intermarried, but he's assimilated Jew. Remember, there's something called assimilation, and there's something called intermarriage, which is worse than assimilation, because his kids will not be Jewish anymore, perhaps. So with this kind of azut panim, with this kind of impure forces that are being so stubborn and persistent in trying to contaminate the Jewish neshama, we have to be very, very strong and not give in. So when we see this in Rashaim, we have to act in the same way. It's not just against the system, it's against people who espouse this. We will not tolerate it. That's why there's a lot of rabbis in Israel who are saying what they're saying, writing what they're writing against the other side, because they feel we have to counter it in any way we can. Otherwise, the media is going to bombard Israeli society with wrong ideas. So that is, you have to stand up, and you have to sometimes stand up in a very, very aggressive way to counter that azut panim. So the good midah of azut panim, or the good midah of azut, I should say, is found in the service of Hashem, is found in the learning of Torah, it is found in giving musar, in rebuke. We're going to talk a little bit about rebuke right before Rosh Hashanah. How to rebuke, how to criticize a family member. That's going to be, Dave, a very important time that I've never really given it length. How do you deal with family members who are doing the wrong thing? Do you rebuke them? Do you keep quiet? And when you rebuke, how do you do it? Do you criticize them very, very, aggressively? Do you do it once or do you do it twice? And I will talk a little bit about Hanufa in that lecture. Hanufa is flattery, chaplusi in Farsi. You have to be careful with that. You can't, just because somebody is your friend or just because somebody is your relative, you have to be careful with flattery, because if you flatter them, they won't understand that what they're doing is wrong. And you're not being truthful. So when we talk about criticism, we'll talk a little bit about that. When a person has azut in a positive way, he's not going to flatter. He's going to tell the person off. You are wrong. This is not right. So you sometimes need this midah of azut to use it in a positive way, in the performance of the mitzvot or to rebuke. All right. Now let's go to the next step. How does someone who has this midah deal with it? How can we help him? Well, the first thing he has to be aware of is what a person does down here, the Kabbalah teaches us, is reflected upstairs. The way one deals with people down here, that is the way they deal with him from above, measure for measure. And when a person is a chatzuf, when he has Hutzpah, when he's insolent, or the other words that we described, brazen and disrespectful, there is a certain koach upstairs, a certain power, let's call it a prosecutor or an angel of sorts, that will be very, very aggressive towards him. It will show tremendous disrespect for him. Now, when we pray, we're asking for Malachei Rahamim, we're asking for the angels of mercy to speak up for us. We don't want anybody who's a brazen prosecutor going after us. So you will notice when you say Tachanun, or when you say the Slichot, there are portions that say, when we confess, En anachnu, or En anu, azei panim ukshe oref, loma lefanecha, lo chatanu. We're not brazen, we're not disrespectful, we're not chas v'shalom azei panim, or stubborn to say we never sinned. The rabbi has made sure to remind us to say those words, so that we should be able to implore HaKadosh Baruch Hu for His mercy. Otherwise, what's going to get in our way are going to be Chaz v'Shalom, aggressive malachim who have no rachamim whatsoever towards us. So in our tachanun, in our supplications to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we make sure to tell ourselves we are not like that. So right now, so just from these little words, from these few words, if one takes him seriously, if one understands what he's saying, it's supposed to hopefully make a dent in him that don't be like that. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. You really are asking for forgiveness. Why are you praying to begin with if you don't believe in it? You do believe in it. You are asking for forgiveness. So be careful that this midah of azut panim is not in you. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. So we say, no, we're not azei panim. We will admit it. We will say it's our fault. We've made a mistake. Or as the English saying goes, respect and you will be respected. If you respect others, you will also be respected. In other words, the way you deal with others, that is how they will deal with you. The way you deal with Shamayim, the type of relationship that you want to have with Shamayim, that is the type of relationship that they will have with you. Okay, what is an individual supposed to do next? He has a problem. The reason why he's disrespectful is because he thinks he's smarter, he doesn't always agree with people, and he doesn't want to listen to them because of that. A very important point one has to get across his mind. It's okay not to agree. Husband and wife sometimes don't agree. It happens. They don't have to agree on everything. It does not mean that you have to make fun, ridicule, look down, argue about it. We agree to disagree, as they say. That's okay. We agree to disagree. Now, if we have to choose the color of the curtains for the living room, give that for the wife to decide. I mean, that does not belong to the husband. You have to, at some points when you have to make a decision, it all depends whose decision this really should be. Some things belong to the wife, some decisions belong to the man. And if the two recognize which one belongs to who, then we have shalom. Sometimes they fight about silly things. 1 second, this is not something to talk about. This belongs to her, this belongs to him. He makes a decision about money matters, most of the time, depending what it is. She makes a decision about what we're going to have for dinner. If she wants to ask her husband, that's very nice of her. What would you like? Because that shows she's considering his opinion too. But a woman has her share, her role, her part of the house that she manages. And the man has his part. One of the tricks of a successful relationship is identifying those areas well and those roles and not mixing them up. Trouble begins when people take the other person's role or the other person is not doing their role. I've known cases where a husband had to cook even though he didn't want to. I know some men love cooking. I'm not talking about them. Because the woman wasn't doing it. She was so preoccupied in her agendas, in what she valued, and what she thought was important, that she is nicha, as we say in Hebrew. What's the word for it in English? She neglected, thank you, the house, the kids. That's not right. There's no book that gives permission for a woman to do that, to neglect the house. Yeah? Take care of your husband, take care of your kids, take care of the house. Then, if you have time, go take care of your friends. Or go take care of your other agenda and business. First comes the house. There's time, go to work. or go do anything else. Same thing with the husband. Husband has his responsibilities to learn Torah, to go to pray. That is part of a Jew's responsibilities, right? To support the house as much as he can. As much as he can, of course. And there's other things that he can do. What can they share? They can share the shopping, perhaps. They can share certain things they can share. You do it one day. It's all about roles. And if we are able to identify the roles, then things can work out. So whenever there is a disagreement, it's okay. It may be okay depending what it is. Just agree to disagree and don't take it further than that. Otherwise, a person who's very, very aggressive, very chatzuf, very disrespectful and rude, will not know when to stop. It's hard for these type of people to just stop. But if they realize, wait a minute, I'm not gonna fight. It's okay to disagree. Then that may help them a little bit. Let's say there is a complaint. You have a complaint about your spouse or about a friend or about a neighbor. Neighbors, sometimes there's fights with neighbors. You have a complaint. You're very upset. You can bring up the complaint. You're still bringing it up in a respectful way. It doesn't mean you don't have to complain. You can still complain. Bring it up to him. Listen, your dog is getting my grass dirty or whatever, your child. You can bring it up in a nice way. There's no need to bring it up in a nasty way. What are you going to accomplish? You're going to make enemies? The same complaint can be brought up in a respectful way. Especially if you're talking to a very important person or an elderly person, the more so that one has to be extra sensitive. This is not impossible to do. So that is another idea that these people who have this weakness have to understand. We're not allowing him to do what they want to do, but it can be done in a different way. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. We covered in one of the midot in the past, we spoke a little bit about the value of every human being, so I don't want to repeat it. But that's an important area that people have to learn. Jew and non-Jew, everybody has value. Everybody has a neshama. Everyone is a creation of Hashem. Everyone is special in some way. There's nothing. I know some people may want to look down at those who are in the poor countries, whether in Africa or in Asia. No reason to look down at them. If anything, feel sorry for them. You know how many millions of Pakistanis right now are displaced? You might be thinking, well, onesh min hashamayim, punishment from shamayim. You don't have to think that way, even though that's true. Miskenim, poor fellows. They're poor. They just lost everything. Their cattle, their kids, maybe their animals. You have to show some empathy for these people. So every human being has value. If people realize this more and more and more, how special everyone is, then it's going to be easier for them not to be so chatzufim. How about teaching respect for others? How do you teach a child to be respectful of others? Well, first of all, by an example. If you respect your wife, if the wife respects their husband, if there's respect amongst them, that helps the children be respectful of their spouses and of other people. So the teacher, the best teacher, is by example. And of course, teaching a child to be respectful of others requires more work. It's not just by example, but that's one of the things that needs to be taken into consideration. Let's say you have a very close friend, or he was a close friend, somebody that you know very well, who's being very, very abusive, very loud, very nasty. He has this problem of Hutzpah and other things as well. Should you be nice to him? Or should you be aggressive towards him? Remember, because the reason I'm asking you this question is because remember before, I said that when it comes to Rashaim, when it comes to the Sutra Hara, you be forceful. What about if it's not Rashaim? It's not Sutra Hara. We're not talking about right now being forceful in a good way. This is somebody that is just a very obnoxious guy, difficult person, especially Hutzpah. Should you be like that to him too? What do you say? Or should you be friendly to him? I think most experts say that your chances are better that he will learn if you're friendly to him. Not to be like that. You may think, I'm going to be like him, just like that, just like he is to me. That's not going to teach him any lessons. The only possible hope is that if you're nice to him and you're respectful of him, maybe over time he's going to realize, well, he's being so nice to me, he's being so friendly. I must be crazy to continue to do this to him or to be like that to him. That is better than the other one around. So with individuals, it is better to be friendly, not to lose your cool because he is behaving himself that way. Another important idea that can be of tremendous value is to learn halachot. Which halachot? The halachot of kavod for someone else, honor of someone else, honor for someone else's property, his money. Don't borrow things without asking permission. That's also a form of respect for other people's possessions. Learning the halachot of kavod of the isha, what a husband's obligation is towards his wife, what a woman's obligation is towards her husband. Learning the halachot. We're talking about halachot, not only the idea. Halachot of kibud av va'em, how to honor one's parents, something which is weak today. Learning the halachot of kavod habriyot, having respect for humanity, for human beings. Kavod for Torah, kavod shamayim. There's halachot. Here's a quick example of kavod shamayim. Do you know that if you see a book, an encyclopedia on top of a chumash, you have to take it off? Why? Because the chumash has kedusha. The chumash should be on top of the encyclopedia, even on top of the sidur. Chumash has more kedusha than other sefarim. What does this halakha tell you? It's not just a halakha. It tells you to conduct yourself with the proper kavod towards that which is holy. You see the Sefer Torah coming out? Hopefully you kiss it, you go buy it, right? You're covered. There's halachot about kavod for Torah. You get up at certain times. What's all this? It falls down, you kiss it, right? And Tamid Chacham comes in, you give him kavod too. Kavod Torah, kavod Shamayim, kavod for things that are holy. These halachot is one way to teach, to impress upon somebody who has this weakness, hey, kavod is something very important, and start with these things. And hopefully, if he's strong in these things, it will lead him to be strong in every area. And when it comes to kavod of the family, I mean the husband and wife, even though it may be very difficult sometimes we're upset, you have to realize that you lose more by being upset than by being respectful. Always remember that. You're going to lose more by being upset, angry, than by being respectful and trying to forget it. You got upset, make sure it only lasts 2 minutes. It's okay to be upset, but make sure it lasts 2 minutes and not a half an hour. Because then, at least everybody's back in a good mood. At least. And at least you have control over it, not it of you. What about a boss? A boss has a big problem. The Yetzer Hara of a boss, he's the boss. Just remember, nobody's your slave. The boss has to be reminded, remember, nobody's your slave. That's something that he has to be reminded of. Somebody has to remind it to him. There are no more slaves. Nobody is your slave. Even though you're the boss, nobody is your slave. Something to keep in mind. Another idea that is very helpful is something that we mentioned in the past, is to greet everybody nicely. Good morning, how do you do? And in different cultures, there's different ways of doing that. You know how they do it in Japan? They bow. How do they do it in the army? They salute. In different cultures, there's different ways to show respect. A handshake, of course. There's different ways. You don't have to do all these things, of course. You can say, good morning, how are you doing? You see a stranger. It's very nice of you. Anybody that gets used to these kinds of things, it becomes easier for him to have respect for every human being. What do you do with a bully? You know what a bully is? A very, very, very difficult child or adult who's a real bully, abusive, a very difficult person. Anybody who's extremely difficult, we've not covered tonight. The very difficult ones needs therapy, needs a lot of help. So I'm not going to tell you that I gave you all the answers here or all the ideas. Anybody who's very difficult really needs a lot more help, because anybody who's come to this difficult situation where he's being so abusive in more than one way, he needs to work on various midot, not just one. He needs help. He needs to be rehabilitated. He needs therapy. He needs professional help. Plus, he needs to be given certain tools. Difficult kids need to be given tools on how to help themselves. In other words, there are certain things that they need to do for themselves to get them out of this problem. So that's a separate area, and I'm just reminding you that if you ever come across somebody like that, don't think there's a quick fix. Some people do need therapy. Okay, just to finish up, some very, very important points about this midah. There's a saying, there's somebody that said the following. Listen carefully to what he said. I could never love where I could not respect. Did you get that? I could never love where I could not respect. If this individual did not have the respect for someone in particular, he would never be able to love that individual. You know how true this is? A husband and a wife, for example, who are supposed to really care and love each other. Well, I mean, what is love? Love is not only passion. Remember, love is to care and to be willing to do for someone that you care about. You know, they are important in your life. They're the father or the mother of your children. They're sharing the home for many years together. They're your partner, right? It is not possible to love if there's no respect. So if we want to increase or improve the love between a couple, we have to restore the respect between them. Otherwise, it's not going to be very loving. They're going to be sharing the same house together. Well, that's not a good relationship. You want to have a little bit of love. You want to have some interest. You want to do things together. You want to be happy together. Husband and wife walking down their daughter or their son. They want to be very excited about it. This is their child. They're proud of him, right? Imagine that they're always fighting. Are they going to be walking down with smiles on their face? Just for the cameras, maybe. But not deep down, deep inside, they won't really feel so happy. They're not 100% happy because there's a lack of respect. So it begins with respect. Once you restore respect, you are able to love. Another saying, never take a person's dignity. It is worth everything to him and nothing to you. So in other words, what are you accomplishing? It's not worth anything to you, but to him it's worth everything. Remember that, keep that in mind before you think of insulting someone. His dignity may be everything to him, but to you it's nothing. It's not worth it. Another saying, you can't control the way they act, you can at least control the way you react. Yeah, there are some people that you can't control the way they act. That's the way they are. So what are you going to do about it? You can at least control the way you react. This is true at home. This is true at work. It's true everywhere. You can't control the world. People are what they are. They may never change. You can at least control the way you react and deal with these situations. You don't have to be bitter about it. You decide whether you want to be bitter or be happy. Just say, forget it. I'm still going to be a happy person because I'm happy because of Baruch Hashem, I'm healthy. Baruch Hashem, Hashem blessed us in many ways. Don't have everything I wanted, so what? You make the decision of how you want to feel. It's important how you react to these kind of situations. Another saying, the final test of the gentleman, who's a true gentleman, is his respect for those who can be of no possible service to him. If a person has a respect for those who have no possible service to him, we're not talking about a waiter, because you're getting a benefit from him. Somebody who you have no service for, no benefit, right? And you're respectful of him, that is the ultimate test of a true gentleman. Yeah. You're kind, you walk somebody across the street that needs your help, you don't have to do it, he doesn't owe you anything, I mean, you don't owe him, and you just do it. You're kind, you're generous, you're nice. That is a test of the gentleman. Otherwise, if you have some benefit from the individual, it's no proof. That is the ultimate test. You have no need for that individual and you're still respectful. And finally, what is reputation? Reputation is what the world thinks of you. Man's character is what he really is. Reputation is what the world thinks of you. Whether it's true or not, that's what they think. Man's character is what he really is. And he knows, hopefully, himself. They may not know everything about him. So he has a reputation. You think it's accurate? Not necessarily. Things are blown out of proportion on resumes and elsewhere. People dress up nicely, they look like that. Nobody knows what's going down. So the reputation is what people think. But in the end, what you really are is what your character is all about. And that is what, of course, matters the most. And that is what Shlomo Amalek tells us in Kohelet, that in the very end, it's the two of them that matter. What one's character was, because that will determine his success in life, plus his reputation too. Tov Shem, Mishem and Tov. V'yom ha'mavet, v'yom ha'valedo. The greatest acquisition in life, the greatest success is if you leave this world with a good name, with a good reputation. That's more important than all the money you don't take with you anyway. So what really matters is what you made of yourself. What did you make of your character? What did you make of your relationship? What did you make of your marriage? What did you do with mitzvot? How did you treat people? How charitable you were? How kind you were? How patient you were? All of these midot that we're Baruch Hashem learning here, did you work on any of them? And if you succeeded on one, it's a big, big success. Kol hakavod. It's an admirable feat. Something that we should be proud of. If we ever are able to refine even one character, that will make a difference in our life, it will make a difference in our marriage. This will determine whether we succeed or not. That is why Shlomo Amalek pretty much says that that's the bottom line of leaving this world with a good name. So we have to strive towards that. In order to leave this world with a good name, one has to work on his character. That is the whole idea of this. B'ezrat Hashem, we have 2 more weeks coming, and I hope that at the end of this series, B'ezrat Hashem, we will have the tools that are necessary to refine our character. Thank you.
If anybody wants the 70 Questions of Judaism by Rabbi Kin, I have them available on one disc. The 70